Pioneer Institute suggesting a way to raise the bar on math achievement, especially in urban school districts. In a recent study, it recommends an expansion of accelerated math programs that show promising results in other communities. To tell us about the study is the Institute's Director of Center for School Reform, Jamie Gass. Thank you very much for being with us, Jamie. Jamie, I want to begin, before we talk about how to fix this, explain what's broke with math right now.
Well, really for the last 25, 30 years, there's been a lot of hand-wringing about the low performance of American students in mathematics. There was a report called The Nation at Risk in 1983, which really kind of sounded the alarm, and the lack of competitiveness in terms of American students in relation to foreign students. Massachusetts has made tremendous strides in the last 25 years. We're the highest performing state in the union and the only state that's internationally competitive in math and science. That said, we still have deep pockets of chronic underperformance where kids that are largely in urban areas are not performing at the levels they need to.
Another problem that's maybe not so new, and I've heard about it here in Boston as well, is that it's hard to find proficient math teachers, probably because there's market competition.
Yeah, that's true. You know, it's interesting. I think that one of the things we observed in this study is that a lot of times the people that go into teaching math, they kind of fall into two buckets. There's people that are really good at math themselves but not that great at teaching it, and then there are people that have not great math skills but have sort of the methodology down. But the bottom line is that the nation, and even here in Massachusetts, we are an underperforming state and country in terms of math. So the two approaches we've had thus far haven't really worked that well.
Well, one of the things you've done in this study is you've looked at a couple of programs, and some people might say, well, those are for ambitious, grade-grubbing families. You know, can they work in the rest of the state, maybe, for most of us?
I think they can. So we looked at two programs. We looked at the Kumon math, which is really kind of a Japanese math, or what many would regard as sort of traditional math, that uses worksheets and regular tutorials week in, week out. And then the Russian School of Math, which is here in Brookline, that has sort of higher order reasoning skills, but also has a lot of kind of more rote memorization that goes with it too. And I think that one of the things that we decided to do when looking at these models, that these are the kinds of programs that high-performing suburban students tend to use to augment their math. And I think what we have found is that a lot of the elements of math are ruthlessly cumulative. So if you miss the building blocks in the early grades, it's going to be hard for you to get to the higher level math. And I think that these two programs in particular are really good at those early level building blocks on which higher level math can be built.
One thing I remember about my struggles with math in the classroom is that you're in this room with 20, in my life, as many as 50 other kids. And, you know, if something doesn't quite stick, you know, you got to go on to the next thing, and you're hopeless. I mean, how do these programs address that kind of a backdrop?
Well, I think that both of them tend to kind of move at the pace of the learner. And what happens, I think, a lot of time in American public education is, as you pointed out, the class has to continue to move on and work through all the material in the course of the year. These programs, these after-school programs, don't have those same kind of time constraints. So they work on having mastery in, say, multiplication, so that they're able to build to decimals and fractions and what have you. Whereas, you know, in the regular public school system, in most classrooms, the teacher has to keep moving through the material, and because they encompass such a wide grouping of students, sometimes some kids fall through the cracks.
This has been on News. We're talking with Jamie Gass from the Pioneer Institute. Jamie, you have a daughter or two in Kumon already. What's that been like?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. So I was not a particularly strong math student. I come from a family with a lot of engineers. I was not a particularly strong math student, and I wanted to make sure that my two daughters, I've got a daughter who's 7 and another one who's 11, did have a strong grounding in math. And so they, for the last several years, have been in the Kumon program. And I think that it's been great. There are worksheets that they do on a regular basis. They do them every day. It takes probably about a half an hour or so. And then they go to Kumon and are there for about an hour or so and get one-on-one tutorial with the instructors. And I've I think it's not only helped them build basic proficiency, but when they are working on things in school, they have a leg up. And I think it was because of that experience, I felt like it was an important thing to do, to commission this research, because these opportunities could and should be more widely available to urban kids and shouldn't just be for suburban kids, because math is for everybody. It's a universal language. It can be taught to anybody, really. But you do need the kind of day in, day out focus on it with real attention to rigor.
I know this wasn't really addressed in the study, but I think another challenge here maybe to making this work in the city is logistics. And, in the suburbs, you might have parents who can drive their kids to after-school programs. Right. Here, that's not always the case, even though there are nonprofits doing programs now. So how do you make this work in the city?
Well, part of the reason why we wanted to do the paper, a major reason, was to offer this as a model that urban districts could employ. There are plenty of after-school programs already in place in Boston. This could be part and parcel of that. If philanthropy or if the Boston Public Schools or another urban school district in Massachusetts wanted to use it as an after-school program, they could. And we know from some of the charter school models that intensive tutoring after school really has yielded an enormous achievement among kids at Match Charter School, which is up on Comm Ave. And I think that it's with that in mind that we know this intensive tutoring works in charter schools. We see it working in suburban areas, and we should try to figure out ways to make it more broadly available.
And another unforeseen consequence possibly here, you might have more kids doing well on the test for exam schools in Boston.
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that we've been struck by, there's a great movie 20 years or so ago called Stand and Deliver. It was about Jaime Escalante, and he worked with urban kids in Los Angeles. He was able to get them to do extraordinarily well on some of the advanced placement programs, entrance to other private schools, and really high quality Ivy League colleges. And so there's really broad application here, and I think that given the weakness that the country and in some respects, certain pockets of the state have experiencing with math and science, I think we have the view, why not? Why not try?
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks so much.
Jamie Guest from the Pioneer Institute.